Hello adventurers, we're back with another RPG horror story. Today, our protagonist is playing a druid in a campaign. However, the DM doesn't take kindly to them playing their classes as written, and instead wants their players to be more creative. The DM's solution to this is to homebrew and edit spells, enemies and characters on the fly. Let's get into it. Tonight's tale is called Am I the Arsehole for Not Being More Creative with My Spells? So, I'm playing a druid in a 5th edition game. The campaign is heavily homebrewed with new races, classes, feats, the like. Everything goes more or less okay up until level 5. The DM is getting frustrated with me for not being very active with spells, or trying to find creative solutions to problems. The issue I tried to present to them was that there was no need to. One of the players had a special ability that started as a joke. They were playing as a talking griffin paladin whose feathers were fur and were so fluffy people could go into the fluff dimension, and it became an actual power, where she basically was a living bag of holding with an air supply. And everything inside the bag of holding still counted as being on the same plane. So the standard solution to most problems was, the bard warlock casts invisibility on the griffin paladin, then everyone piles into the fluff dimension, and she simply flies past the obstacle or threat. An example of this was during a drake siege on a town. We had to reach a flying castle that was releasing an apparently endless series of drakes. I used wild shape to become a raven and began flying around town, mimicking the voices of the party to lure the drakes away, so that the party could try to reach the castle. The bard and the DM then proceeded to get annoyed with me for holding up the game, and we were more or less just moved on from there with a "you all eventually pile into the invisible griffin taxi clown car and fly to the castle." The DM also frequently altered spells' functions, sometimes without warning, and would occasionally just give out magic items that gave people the spells that I had. An example being that I took augury as a prepared spell at one point, only for the paladin to say, "Oh, I have a magic item that lets me cast that." They also altered augury so that if two people asked about the same topic, the answer was personalised. Like if I asked, would it be good or bad for us to investigate these ruins, I could get a good answer, and then the paladin could ask the exact same question with their magic item and get a bad answer. I saw this as a sort of rendering any information gleaned from the spell as moot. The peak of it all was during our final boss fight against a major villain. We'd infiltrated a dragon cult at their own fortress, and the very next in-game day, the half-dragon in charge arrives and calls everyone to the main courtyard. He's aware that someone's infiltrated his castle. We managed to pin the blame on a group of grunts, but as we're preparing to leave, the half-dragon asked for our names. Seeing as our group was semi-well known to the cult at that point, I made the mistake of having my druid lie. Roll a deception. I rolled surprisingly well, 17. Doesn't matter, the half-dragon nat 20'd his insight, knew we were lying and immediately went into initiative. So, obviously I'd prepared most of my spells for sneaking around the fort that day, having no clue that the dragon's week-long vacation would end literally the next day after we arrive. So, combat starts and the dragon is pretty high in initiative. He strikes the rogue and smites. The half-dragon has paladin levels. Alright. The fight continues for a bit, with our paladin who we'd hidden arriving around round 3. The half-dragon is in his lair, and the lair action is that 1d4 skeletons spawn, every single round. We learn when the paladin throws his own first smite that this half-dragon has a special homebrew feat. In short, any divine-based attack has a 50% mischance. Period. No getting around it. The DM included the paladin's smites as a divine-based attack. Yes, this does mean that if the paladin hit with a nat 20 and then declared he used a smite, the DM would make him roll the 50-50 mischance. And, because he's declared using a smite, if he whiffed, the smite's lost and the slot's spent. He lost the smite to literally that incident once during the fight. In addition to that, the half-dragon has advantage on all saving throws against divine spells. And in addition to that, the half-dragon can add his proficiency modifier to any save he isn't proficient with, and double his proficiency modifier with any save he is proficient with against divine spells. The party consisted of myself as a druid, an arcane trickster rogue, a paladin, a bard warlock, who despite their lore being that they literally gain their spells from a goddess, did not count as a divine caster, a storm sorcerer, and an entirely forgettable cleric that used cool lightning and zapped at him every round for the entire combat. I ran the maths after the combat on this half-dragon paladin's saves. The DM told me his stats while drunkenly rambling about how we didn't like that fight. He had a plus 14 on his lowest saving throw, with advantage, against any spell I could throw at him. I'm a level 5 druid. So I cast Spike Growth to at least slow down and destroy the incessantly spawning skeletons. But the DM starts having them just spawn right at the edge of the Spike Growth, so that they don't have to take much damage. And the half dragon polymorphs into a full adult dragon and just flies out of the Spike Growth. Awesome. So after the half dragon in his polymorphed dragon form picks up the rogue and bludgeons me with him, using a smite to damage us both and instantly knocking the rogue out, I resort to heal botting. We eventually win the fight because the bard lot got something like 7 critical hits with their College of Swords fancy strikes. The DM after the session proceeds to criticise me for not trying to do anything to the dragon. Quote, "You didn't even try to attack him." Reminder that this half-dragon paladin with the super anti-divine feat had a 95% chance of saving against any saving throw spell I threw at him, in addition to his legendary resistance. I was also hit with a, "You didn't think strategically. You could have hid behind walls and such like the bard did. You were at low health the whole time." The bard did hide inside a wall, but the half-dragon's acid breath apparently melted straight through it when he finally got annoyed with the bard's hit and run tactic. And then the half-dragon just smashed straight through a second wall when the bard found a new hiding spot. If the fight was too hard, you guys should have ran. Note that this half-dragon polymorphed into his true dragon form, and maintaining his ability to use all of his class features, as he could still smite and everything, could fly faster than we could run. This half-dragon paladin had close to 200 HP, legendary resistances, an infinitely spawning army of skeletons every round, and could apparently smite 2 people with one attack, just by picking one up and smacking the other with them. The DM was very frustrated that we did not have fun with this fight. I wanted you guys to feel like heroes. Dragon fights are like quizzes for everything you've learned so far in the game. And that's where our tale ends. So, I can absolutely empathise with wanting characters to be creative in the problem-solving department and in battles, but I think I'm firmly against needing players to be creative in that way. Not everyone wants to play Dungeons & Dragons in that specific way, and that is absolutely fine. As the game in this story went on, it seemed more to me that the Dungeon Master was saying they wanted their players to have creative solutions to the roadblocks that they were throwing up. But as a response, they started to create fights that outright rendered their players useless if they tried to play their characters the way they were currently playing them, which is probably an error in judgment. You shouldn't really actively try to force your players to play so wildly differently. Or at least you probably shouldn't do it in such a way that they literally cannot play their character because they are ineffective against their opponent. By taking away your players' abilities, you, in all likelihood, are also taking away their fun. And Dungeons & Dragons is supposed to be fun. That's all I have for tonight. But remember, the tavern is always open. Good night.